Before his appointment, James served as the chief of staff for Governor DeSantis, where he led an executive staff and oversaw 20 state agencies and over 100,000 employees. James also served as the governor's general counsel and managed the litigation and legal work for the governor and various state agencies. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross was the one he was supervisor for. And he began his career as a litigation associate at Jones Day in Washington, D.C. He's an adjunct professor at Florida State University College of Law. James, his wife, Jean, and their 3 children are active parishioners at the Co-Cathedral of St. Thomas More in Tallahassee. So it's my pleasure to introduce the Attorney General. Nice to meet you.
Well, thank you for having me. Good morning. It's great to be here at the 46th Annual TaxWatch. I'll start by thanking you for the service you provide. I think TaxWatch has developed a well-earned reputation as the watchdog of Florida government. To put simply, you keep government honest, you shine a light on irresponsible spending, and you hold our leaders accountable. And I commend that effort and certainly share those goals. Florida proves, as I'm sure you've heard many times during this gathering, that fiscal responsibility works. We don't like taxes. We boast no state income tax. We have a lean budget, less than half that of New York, which is a smaller state. Record vetoes of pork over the last recent years. And nevertheless, we continue to be a beacon of hope, a light for the rest of the country, attracting new residents from all over the country. And I'll tell you, when it comes to me, as I travel around talking to businesses, talking to home builders, getting feedback as to why people are moving here, it's been interesting to see the responses change. And there's so many reasons people would move to Florida. It's beautiful, great weather, great retirement, low taxes, great education systems, great business opportunities. But the answer now that is prevailing as most common, especially in the home builder world, is public safety. When I first started to hear that, it took me by surprise. Like, that's not, what I would have thought. But I think we take for granted our safety in this state, and we're now starting to see instances across the country where there are brutal stabbings, there are murders, there are innocent bystanders who have done nothing wrong, who are not part of crime syndicates, who are just living their life walking sidewalks or on public transportation, who are experiencing the real harms of escalating crime rates and violence. So here in Florida, we're happy to boast the lowest crime rate of a big state. We are the safest large state in the country to raise a family. And to me, it's not that complicated. It's not rocket science, but it's more important than rocket science. It's funding our law enforcement, having their backs, giving them the tools they need to be successful, and then getting out of the way to let them do their jobs, unless they call in for help. So that's what we do here in Florida. We've got the best law enforcement in the country, the best sheriffs, the best police chiefs. It's an honor for me. It's been the best part of the job over the last 7-8 months to work with them, to support them, and to be there for whatever they need. I think as long as we can keep that first and foremost priority, we will continue to be the safest state to raise a family, and all of the other economic benefits will be realized. We can talk about hundreds and hundreds of good policy ideas and discussions, and there's many of them that are meaningful. But if we're not safe, if we don't give our parents the comfort that they can raise a family here and not be worried every minute of the day, then none of the other things really matter. Our leaders are also focusing our resources and our lean budget on the things that matter most. As we see population continuing to pour into this state, it is not slowing down. I think a lot of people moved in COVID, but then other people realized they wanted to move in COVID, and it's taken them some time to, figure out their, business arrangements, untangle, and find ways to get here. And as the governor says, we're not necessarily out there, recruiting new visitors, but they're coming for the right reasons, and we need to prepare for that. So investing in what really matters, core infrastructure to deal with congestion, our education systems to make sure that we are giving our young people the tools they need to be successful and go off and raise their own families, and properly supporting law enforcement so that we have that foundation of safety. Those are the precepts that are going to make sure our state continues to realize success. In the Office of the Attorney General, we share the mission of fighting for taxpayers, fighting for consumers. Over the last 7-8 months since I've been in office, we've recovered for the taxpayers about $500 million in property seizures, fines, and settlements. And I want to be clear, I do not believe litigation is the best option in life. I try to avoid that at all costs. I've found that if businesses or parties are engaged in a behavior that is scamming, stealing, or wronging somebody and it's accidental, then when you bring it to their attention, they want to fix it. They don't want to fight. They want to fix it, and they want to do right by the people. And those that don't, we're very happy to see in court, and we will, we'll punish them a little bit to make sure that we are indeed protecting our citizens and making them whole when they've been wronged. So we've been happy to bring in about $500 million. We will continue to protect our consumers and ensure that wrongdoers that come into our state wanting to follow capital, wanting to cheat, wanting to steal, if you're getting those texts about the tolls, they are fake. If you don't know that by now, they are fake. Please do not click them. We're doing everything we can. Technology today is so good where the minute we figure out where the IP address is, they've moved to another offshore location. So we're going to continue playing whack-a-mole, and we're strategically thinking about long-term plans to try to crack down on some of this and maybe do some public service announcements. But they're fake texts. Your highway safety, ID, fines, and your tolls, do not click those. If you have any questions, you can call my office and probably get an answer about whether a text is real or not rather quickly, because we see a lot of these. Good government does not mean big government. In our office, we've also leaned down over the last year by almost 7%. We've been able to cut about 70 FTEs, focusing more on quality than quantity, focusing on new technologies that help our investigators and law enforcement to crack down on the ever-evolving financial crimes that are out there. Today we see far more illegal activity being done through crypto scams than I ever would have thought a year ago. And nevertheless, our office continues to be even more and more impressive. So with a leaner office, we still have a record number of arrests, a record number of convictions, a record number of ongoing cases. Protecting our kids has been my priority, and I've made clear the entire office knows that. Our office has taken a heightened role in going after child predators, which was previously, it's something all prosecutors care about, don't get me wrong, and the state attorneys around the state were really focused on it. But our Office of Statewide Prosecution can take a case when it's impacting more than one circuit. And today, almost every child predator case starts online, which by nature gives us jurisdiction. So I've pulled a lot of people off of hot tub construction fraud, I guess was like the big thing in the 90s. So we had like a whole team for hot tub construction fraud. Every press release, my comms team was trying to bury puns. This guy's in hot water. This case bubbled up over 2 years. Anyway, so we'll keep focused on that. But at the end of the day, if you've got child rapists out there going after our kids through social media, that's my priority. So we're gonna continue to move resources. We've arrested a record just over 1,000 child predators in the last 6 months, and perhaps more impressively, working with law enforcement and the marshals, we've been able to rescue 90 kids in the state over the last 6 months that were previously. These are kids that were previously reported missing, victims of human trafficking in many respects, kids that have been through the worst forms of abuses. And some of this starts through our foster care program. You've got, I think, probably not the best incentives in identifying foster care parents. You've had, obviously, some hostile environments, but runaways. So we certainly have our challenges facing us on a proactive policy front. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sleep at night until we get every one of these, sick and dangerous people off the streets and away from our kids. And many of you have probably heard me say already, these cell phone devices at the fingertips of young people, that is the greatest threat to the next generation. If you're not already plugged into what your kids or grandkids are doing online, please go home. Don't waste a minute. Figure that out right away. We have brought civil and criminal actions against multiple companies. Snapchat, Roblox is a gaming app for kids I didn't know a lot about, one of the worst offenders. Many of these applications are operating in a dangerous way where they know predators are using their services to get to kids. And the predators will pretend to be kids. They'll use fake pictures. They'll talk in a youth dialect. They'll spend weeks or months at it. They're patient. They will spend weeks or months tapping into the vulnerabilities and the insecurities of our kids before they start to solicit personal information, before they start to try to find in-person locations to meet up. It's horrific. And since we've begun those investigations, we continue to make dozens of arrests where predatory actions, in many cases physical abuse, have happened, and we can trace it all the way back to a relationship that was built online. So take this seriously. Our legislative leaders recognize this problem. They've continued to legislate, and we're now defending a lot of these laws in court. I'm confident we will prevail, and we have to continue to fight these dangers, recognizing that technology isn't going anywhere. Our cell phones are not going anywhere. These social platforms are not going anywhere, but our kids will still be here, and we've got to protect them. So while things are good, while Florida is ranked number one in almost every important economic metric in the country, and while other states continue to look to us for guidance, our challenges will continue to be there. We will continue to have agencies across the state and local governments that are spending recklessly, carelessly, and without transparency. And I will be watching. I know you all will be watching, and I'm happy to work together as we constantly try to do good. Cost of living is going to continue to go higher as Florida becomes a destination that people want to visit. As capital continues to come here, as demand is here, property values will go up. Insurance rates will continue to be a burden on many families, though we are seeing great results from the litigation reform that was just so recently passed. My personal auto insurance rates went down 6% 2 years in a row. I mean, I see that firsthand. It's a good start. We got some work to go, but at the end of the day, we recognize, where you have rising property values, you are going to have higher insurance. We have a geography that is challenging, and people choose to live here knowing that. But at the end of the day, we have to ensure as much competition as possible if we are going to stabilize that market, and I think that we have started, on that way. Our rising population will continue to add stress to our infrastructure, our education systems, our health care, and our criminal justice system. We're happy as a state and Florida law enforcement to lead the way on immigration enforcement, which has indeed been a significant tax on our state and its resources. We've been happy to help the Trump administration secure the border for once and for all, and we will continue to ensure that we are bringing back our country's and state's sovereignty and keeping our families safe. Eliminating property taxes is something that I know that's on people's minds. I think it's a great idea. It would be nice to finally find, a new policy reality where people do indeed own their own homes. And I'm confident that our leaders are working hard on that. And I know that they value law enforcement and education and are not going to do anything to jeopardize those highly important resources and needs for a good and just society. So I'll conclude by saying criminals and evildoers will always be here. Evil will always be in the world. I believe it is a fight of good versus evil. Evil will follow good people. It will follow good policies. It will follow success and even, fiscally successful societies. And that's where I'll be. I will be there. I will be fighting for you all every single day and your constituencies to make sure that we have public safety, because without that, we have nothing else. And finally, public service is about stewardship, not empire building. So we will continue to pursue good governance, recognizing that it doesn't always mean more, new, and bigger. It means better, more fiscally responsible, and more focused on Florida families. So thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Yeah, happy to take any questions. Yeah.
General, thank you for being here. I wonder if you could touch a little bit on the relationship between illegal immigration and human trafficking and drug trafficking.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So I want to start by saying, obviously not everybody here illegally is some malicious child rapist. I think it's easy for conservatives sometimes to get lost in that rhetoric. But I will tell you this. Every other week we do one of these large stings where we're trying to, we've got law enforcement undercover, flooded to a region, trying to find, largely through online means, people that want to prey upon our kids, trying to find offenders of large-scale drug and human trafficking. And every single time, while I pray, maybe we're not going to find anybody this time. I mean, if they're there, I hope we find them, but I'd rather them not be there. Every time we bring back dozens. In the latest case in Polk County, it was 240 arrests. Of that 240, over like a 4 or 5 day span, because after you hit so many days, they realize that law enforcement's out there and they start to scatter like cockroaches. Of those 240 arrests, 48 were illegal aliens. These are illegal aliens trying to molest our kids at a disproportionately high rate. You don't have 1 out of 5 people walking down the street as somebody here illegal. But every time we do one of these busts, we're looking at 15 to 25% of those arrested are here illegally. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the level of criminal activity going over the southern border was so large and extreme. The illicit drug, human, and other trafficking that was going on has creeped its way into all communities where it is just a fact that we have to recognize and accept a large percentage of our criminal activity out there is indeed illegal alien driven. So I recognize not everybody that's here without proper documentation is an evildoer. Many people want to be here for the right reasons. They want to pursue a good living and provide for others. And to those people I tell them, look, the federal government has taken its position to enforce the law. My job is not to decide what the law is. It's to enforce it as written. And you have the opportunity to take the federal government up on the $1,000 and the free flight, back home, and then you remain eligible to come here through legal means. To everybody else that is committing atrocious crimes, we are going to come for you. We've got many facilities, including Alligator Alcatraz, that will detain you if you've committed a crime in this country. We're not sending you home until you've done the time to be held accountable for that crime, at which point you will be sent home and you will not be eligible to come back. So rule of law is important. We cannot have a country without borders. We've seen the harms up and down our country that have resulted from many years of no borders. And it's refreshing that we now have an administration that's empowering the state, blessing the state, and working with us to enforce the law. So thank you for the question. Any other questions? Yeah. Go ahead.
Setting aside the illegal immigration, is there anything we're beginning to do to try to change the demand of people being predators on children?
The demand?
Yeah.
Well, I think to address the demand, you got twofold. Number one, I think you need to incarcerate a lot of these people for a long time because I think that they do have an illness. I don't think we're going to change their mind overnight. Some of these child porn cases, they've got millions of files, millions of files. And it's not just like images. It's not somebody that's 17 and maybe, they didn't know the age. In many cases, it is violent sexual abuse on toddlers. That type of person there's no therapy that's going to fix that person overnight. So I believe we need to lock these people up for as long as possible. Now, that doesn't mean we don't try to help them once they're incarcerated. I believe we need tons of treatment, tons of therapy, and the state has been very committed to resources in that regard. But at the end of the day, public safety is first and foremost, and then it comes to addressing the sickness.
And you're on my point. I wasn't looking for the psychological fix. It was longer sentences.
Yeah, look.
Before release.
This morning, we put out another announcement. I know people are familiar with the challenges we're having in Orlando. Most of the state crime lows continue to go down. Our record, when I got the job, we were at record crime lows. So I thought, man, if our crime goes up even like 0.01%, I've failed. I've really screwed up, and that's going to be rough. But no, we keep going lower, and it's because our law enforcement gets it. Our prosecutors, for the most part, get it. And where they don't get it, we're going to hold them accountable and remind them. So, this morning, we had yet another case where the state attorney here in Orlando that was recently reelected following the governor's suspension from office dropped a first-degree attempted murder case down, first-degree attempted murder with a firearm that should lead to a lifetime sentence given the facts of this case. It was pled down to a second-degree offense without a firearm. And the mandatory minimums were all waived. So this prosecutor is overruling the will of the legislature to ensure that dangerous criminals are away from society for as long as possible. I'll give you the facts of this case. You tell me if you think it's first-degree attempted murder. A couple breaks up. An ex-boyfriend spends an entire day looking for his ex-girlfriend. He's going to other people asking for her whereabouts. He's literally hunting her throughout the day. He pulls up next to her, finds her in a drive-thru of a Crystal Burger, and then pulls out a firearm and unloads 12 times, shooting at her. By the grace of God, she's not killed, she's not injured, but bullets are found in her air conditioning system. One is lodged into the seat back behind her head, several within the car. How is that not first-degree attempted murder? That's an open-shut case. So we're going to be digging in to figure out why are some of these remaining prosecutors continuing to do these things. I don't see that as an unnecessary drain on resources. I see that as an abuse of discretion and something that dangerously jeopardizes the safety of our society.
Thank you, General, for your service.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the work you do. Oh, okay.
So, Florida taxes for a long time, going back, I think, into the 1980s. In fact, U.S. Senator, former U.S. Senator Connie Mack, really adopted our modulated three-part of his senatorial campaign, was to really improve Florida's standing with the census and the count. Because he knew Florida's a fast-growing state, and if we even counted everybody in 2020 or 2030, we're still going to be behind because we're growing so fast. So we send a lot of our money to other states that are no longer living there for the federal government. Talk a little bit about two things. One, the importance of counting everyone, making sure every person counts before so we get our money. A. B, political representation in the Congress and in the electoral college. Thank God it was not what it was, but it could be close. And he pointed out very clearly. But talk a little bit about that, and also the possibility of having mid-decennial reportion in this coming session.
Yeah, you clearly know this one's near and dear to my heart. So I'll start on the importance of, drawing representative maps in a way that reflect our society. And we now have legally challenged and have been successful at questioning a lot of these, majority-minority race-based districts where, you had a district running from Tallahassee, downtown, all the way to downtown Jacksonville and essentially hugging the highway in between, uniting two very distinct and different communities for the purposes of trying to get up to, I don't even think it was at 40% of a black population. That's not legally required. It's not right. We instead focused on a map that's got very compact and clean districts, and it ultimately resulted in Republicans taking over Congress by a narrow margin. If Florida had not made these changes, that would not have happened. So these little things, while we've got skirmishes in between our branches of government in the state and people that don't want to come back for a special session. I know I'm not even allowed to say those words. It matters. It's got huge implications. It matters at a national level. Getting to the census, and I worked on this at the Department of Commerce that oversees the Census Bureau. I didn't know that when I took the job, and it was a major headache. The census is so important. It decides how we break down electoral power, the electoral votes that decide the number of representatives each state gets in Congress, that decide who's going to be the next president, that decides how billions of dollars will be handed out to various states. That's all driven by the census. So when you see those people going around, it's easy to think, oh, it's just another annoying thing every 10 years. And I think the census now costs the taxpayers like $18 billion. But it is so important. And so we have detoured in a way that is very dangerous to our electoral system. We now, we count everybody, and the Supreme Court has said you count all persons. But I do not believe it is legally required for that count of all people physically present in the country to be directly tabulated for apportionment. Because right now, states that have a disproportionately high number of people here illegally, California, New York, Illinois, Virginia, we'll have some in Florida too, admittedly, they are getting more representation in Congress as a result of that presence. And they are also getting more representation on who is going to be the next president of the United States. This is not what the founders would have wanted. It dilutes the votes of people that have constitutional voting rights, that are here legally. It makes no sense to me that a state with a lot of people that don't have a legal right to vote gets more electoral power based on those people that don't have a legal right to vote, right? Seems pretty common sense. So we've got a lot of work to do. I know the Trump administration gets this. Redoing an entire census in the middle of a 10 years is not an easy lift, but I'm glad they are working on it, and I've been up there, to give them advice and offer to help them where I can. Here in Florida, I'll tell you this, when I left the Department of Commerce under Secretary Wilbur Ross, Florida was projected to get 2 seats. Rhode Island was projected to lose a seat. Well, the administrations change, and there's a big delay, and they say that there's all these issues, and they can't release the census results. And then, lo and behold, what pops out? Florida somehow gets 1 seat. You think in 2020 our population started to go down? Absolutely not. So I don't know how they took us from 2 new seats to 1, and guess who didn't lose a seat? Rhode Island. Guess who the new Secretary of Commerce was? Governor of Rhode Island. So you can see there's a lot of manipulation that went on, and after census audit done by the Biden administration actually admitted in writing that Florida was undercounted by at least, I think they said 750 people, at least. I bet it was significantly higher. But if we take them at 750, we only needed about 100,000 more to get our other seat. So we have been wronged and denied representation, funding, and electoral power that we as a state deserve. I'm looking at legal options to fight for that. This is not an easy avenue, and I'm happy to have a federal government working with us on this. But the next time we have a census, we better be fully prepared to go out there and ensure that absolutely everybody gets counted. So,
General follow-up,
yeah.
I think, should we just do a competent, not even a grant, a common job? We'll get those 2 seats plus a couple more. So we should be getting in 2030 quite a bit.
And that's the thing I think, this is why the Democrats are fighting us so much on illegal immigration. You see Democrat officials down there at Alligator Alcatraz and some of these other ICE facilities. I mean, and they're crying, they're protesting, they're attacking law enforcement officers. And I'm thinking, here they are, like literally at Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, a lot of the worst offenders are there. They're defending child rapists and traffickers and heinous criminals, not the victims, not the young children that have suffered by these people, not the families that have suffered from, the expanse of fentanyl. They're fighting for the wrong thing, but it's because they realize what's at stake. In the next census, where has the population shifted? It has shifted to states like Florida and Tennessee and Georgia and Texas. So I think they know what's coming, and that's why they are clawing and they are fighting to the very death to keep whatever they can for this illegal population that is giving them disproportionate, political value. All right. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you.